This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the voices on the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm news anchor Sarah Harnisch, and with me today, PA Family President and CEO, Michael Geer. We're talking Dr. James Dobson. It's pretty easy to see the split between right and left in America when you Google the name of Dr. James Dobson. The AP labeling him a key leader in the radical religious right who, quote, waged war against abortion and the LGBTQ plus movement. CBN calls him a champion of family values, a spiritual advisor to 5 presidents who spent his life promoting biblical values and strengthening marriages and equipping parents. The former had a focus on the family, which eventually grew to 7,000 stations in 150 countries, reaching 220 million listeners. This is a powerful man. Tell me your thoughts, Michael, on the late Dr. Dobson.
Dr. Dobson was a remarkable man who left an indelible imprint on families and children across America, on parents, on churches, and on government as well, not only across America, but around the world, starting with his book, Dare to Discipline, which really pushed back against sort of the permissive ideology that came out of people like Dr. Benjamin Spock back in the 50s and 60s, really returning people to biblical values in terms of how they parent their children. His impact is tremendous. Not surprised at the pushback from those who disagree with those worldviews, the news media and other things, but people listening to this broadcast and people who knew of Dr. Dobson because of the 7,000 plus radio stations that his broadcast came into, they know better. They understand the common sense wisdom and the biblical wisdom that he was presenting to families across America.
The thing that concerned me the most was that for every headline that praised his work on biblical values, there were 5 that slapped labels on him. Do you think that he'll be remembered as one that changed the tide, or somebody that pushed people farther from biblical values because of his unwavering approach to absolute truth?
Well, yeah, his approach to truth was something that he was steadfast in. He kind of had his hand to the plow and just kept pushing and talking about those biblical truths. Common sense values, honestly, that people saw the fruit in the lives of their own children. And the fact that he got criticism from that, from those who have a different worldview or different perspectives, is not a surprise. You know, Jesus told us that we would expect those hatred and negative things from folks who disagree with us. That's par for the course. And what is remarkable about Dr. Dobson is he didn't shrink back from those criticisms. He understood what the truth was, and whether enduring withering criticism or praise from other audiences, he just kept talking about what the Bible says and what common sense says and what his research as a psychologist and experienced pediatric psychologist, what that taught him about the well-being of families and children and what children need, like mothers and fathers and intact families and those kinds of values that create prospering families and a prospering society.
And you know, it meant a lot to him because at 89 years old, he's still in a studio, still promoting, the Bible out of Colorado, which is just incredible at that age to continue the work that he did. Can you talk more about his legacy and what he leaves behind? How does it influence groups like your work with PA Family?
Well, I think his legacy won't be ultimately known to folks like us until we get to the other side, to heaven, to see the vast impact that he's had. I know for us at Pennsylvania Family Institute, significant impact that he had in encouraging the establishment of groups like ours at the Pennsylvania Family Institute, what we call family policy councils. That was just a small part of his recognizing that the vital role of the family was under attack, and that many of those attacks came from forces in society, including public policies at the state level, that were undermining and eroding the value of the family and those values that uphold the family. And so he encouraged the establishment of these independent state organizations as part of his legacy. But then I think about my own children. They're all grown now and have their own kids, but the legacy of the Focus on the Family broadcast called Adventures in Odyssey, which brought biblical values down to sort of a childlike level in terms of understanding some of the principles of how we are to live and following Christ. His impact just in those 2 realms is just significant. And then being the advisor to no less than 5 United States presidents on issues related to the family just show some of the remarkable impact that this man had on the lives and future of our country.
What can we learn about sharing the truth of the gospel effectively from the life of Dr. James Dobson?
A number of things. One, I thought that was valuable about him is he took these biblical principles and brought them down to a practical level of how you live them out in your life. And so we should be be looking for opportunities to do the same thing about the challenges that families and individuals, parents are facing today. How do we take those biblical principles and bring them down to a practical level that people can walk out in their life? I think that's number one. Number two is to not shrink back from what we know the truth to be. Ultimately, when we stand for truth, though, again, we face the criticism like Dr. Dobson did, the lives that are changed, the culture that is changed as a result of engaging for truth is a promise that God gives us that the word will not return void, and as we engage, we'll see positive fruit come from it in spite of what critiques we may face.
Learn more at pafamily.org.